He's like, picture this human person sitting on top of a 6-ton elephant. The person sitting on top, we'll call that person the rider. And the rider's responsibility, what they contribute to this situation is the rider provides the direction of where the human's going to go, the left brain. The elephant, on the other hand, representing the right brain, the right brain provides the energy and enthusiasm to move, the energy and enthusiasm to change directions, the energy and enthusiasm to even spring into action at all. And so I read that and I was like, that's it. And John Maxwell says we can't move people into action until we first move them with emotion. So if you think about the rider and the elephant, and I say this in all of my workshops, I say it when I'm doing my keynotes, and I say it when I'm talking to anybody who will listen or has an interest in any of this stuff, is think about it for you and me. If the rider and the elephant ever disagree, if the left brain and the right brain ever disagree on which direction to go or whether or not to spring into action, who's going to win? The rider or the elephant? It's going to be the elephant every time for a couple.
Welcome to Narrative's Leadership Story Talks, where great leaders go beyond the bottom line to create lasting impact. Join hosts Jerome and Julienne Ryan as they uncover the stories behind real-world challenges, offering practical insights to help you lead with empathy, authenticity, and purpose. Each episode dives into how leaders use storytelling to build trust, foster connection, and inspire action. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, driving change, or building high-performing teams.
Welcome to Leadership Story Talks. I'm Jerome CEO of Narrative.
And I'm Julienne Ryan, and it's great to be here.
Yes, so good to be back. So before we move on to introducing our guest, I want to remind our listeners to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and also check out our YouTube channel where this episode will be housed as well. You can also check out our episode notes, which especially today, you're going to want to do that because there's a special gift inside those episode notes from our guest today, where you can find downloadable materials and files, and there's a couple of landing pages there, lots of materials to help you along as you read these books that we're about to talk about in this interview. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest here. His name is Taylor Scott. He's an author, inspirational keynote speaker, and leadership development consultant. His books, leadership development programs, and keynotes are inspired by a 20-year leadership career in the hospitality and entertainment industries, working for Disney Parks and Resorts, Gaylord Hotels and Resorts, Wynn Resorts, and the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. Taylor is the author of Give Hospitality, Lead with Hospitality, and also Ballgames to Boardrooms. Taylor lives in Henderson, Nevada with his beautiful wife, Jenna. They enjoy working out, traveling, shopping, dining, and visiting as many hotel lobby bars as possible, as one might expect. All right. Well, Taylor, it's really great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see all of you here and nice to meet all of our listeners here virtually and people who are watching. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I want to kick us off the way that we kick it off with all of our guests, actually. This is a question we ask of everyone that comes onto the show. And that is, if you could tell us about an experience that you feel has shaped who you are today, something that still kind of influences you or informs you in some way.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have so many. We'll probably get to a few of them, but I'm thinking about one in particular. I had just started at Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center way back in at the end of 2001. And we all remember what happened in September of 2001. So I was in a bit of transition. I was doing a management internship at Walt Disney World right after I graduated undergrad. And it was great. I was at the Contemporary. 3 months I was a housekeeping manager. 3 months I was a front desk manager. But unfortunately, since 9/11 happened, when it did, Disney couldn't status any of us temporary salaried people full time. So I went across the street basically to Gaylord Palms, kind of knocked on the door and begged somebody to hire me. So luckily for me, I got on the team there as a housekeeping manager for the opening of that property. And it was awesome. The grand opening was, ready for this, 02/02/02, February 2nd, 2002 at 2:02 p.m. fireworks in the atrium, the whole nine yards. So there I was, the 22 version of me, 45 as we sit here right now. And I just remember being in awe of the entire experience. But a couple weeks before the grand opening, they brought in a guest speaker. And I wish to this day I remember who it was, but I remember he was from Cornell. He was from the Cornell Hotel School. And this guy said, "Friends, let me tell you something. Whether you work in hospitality for the next 2 years or the next 20 years, he's like, I want you to remember the essence of hospitality is the ability to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and important." And I just
Mm.
remember sitting there, I was like, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, kind of thing. I just share that because that was 23 years ago. And then I went and did all these things. And I worked
Mm.
all these different places in these different roles. And that's really what has led me to doing what I'm doing today, which
Mm.
is I write books, I create these learning experience, leadership development learning experiences, these workshops, because I believe after going around and working all these places in the hospitality and entertainment industry, the essence of leadership, the essence of true inspirational, almost dare I say transformational leadership is also the ability to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and important. So that story kind of shapes the last 20 plus years for me.
Taylor, I have taught school and I've read students' work, and I read your book quite closely as I quickly as I could, and making sure you did not give your example full justice, because you are a living metaphor for the expression, like getting your foot in the door and getting in the door. And you didn't just introduce yourself. The front door of the building was locked because they had too many applicants, and you found the back door. Now, in New York, we call that breaking and entering, but you did manage to get into the place and introduce yourself, and figured out a way to look like you belonged there till you found somebody you could talk to. So there was a little more context behind that story that people will really enjoy when they read your book.
Yeah.
That's all true.
Well,
Thank you.
yes, and that's really the reason, these books are are so great because, well, first of all, thank you for answering that question in the way that you did, because we love asking this question of our guests because often what comes out is, yes, you can kind of go full circle, you 23 years ago to now, and you can actually trace that line between that moment and of course, many things happened. But it is kind of amazing that these three words, of the essence of leadership, and at the time for you was, hospitality, and that's what it is, and how you can trace that back to leadership as well. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today as well. Is that, in one of your books, I think it's in Lead with Hospitality, you talk about the emphasis on connecting emotionally with team members before you can actually manage them. And so I'm curious about how you yourself discovered that, and how that approach, you know, gets adopted in or have you seen that approach get adopted in other industry, not just hospitality, but elsewhere as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I had this idea about leading with hospitality a long time ago,
Mm.
and never really could figure out how to package it or what to do with it. So I just started reading. I started reading different different things out there from researchers and different magazines, and I got a couple degrees in this stuff, and so I would call people and talk to some of my old professors as well. But I came across something that up by you, Julian, Jonathan Haidt, an NYU
Okay.
psychologist. He wrote a book called The Happiness Hypothesis, and
Hmm.
and in his book, he paints a picture of what's going on inside the human brain at all times. And Chip and Dan Heath, whom I love, they
Oh,
use
yes.
they use Jonathan Haidt's analogy here or metaphor in their book, Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard, that sold, oh, I don't know, tens of millions more copies of book than I will ever sell. But I remember going across that and thinking to myself, well, if they can use his work, maybe I can leverage it as well. And basically, I love what Jonathan Haidt says. He's like, we got the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And the left side of the brain responsible for the logic and the intellect and the analysis of anything. The right side of the brain is really responsible for emotions and creativity and imagination. So he has this metaphor. He's like, picture this human person sitting on top of a 6-ton elephant. The person sitting on top, we'll call that person the rider. And the rider's responsibility, what they contribute to this situation, is the rider provides the direction of where the human's going to go, the left brain. The elephant, on the other hand, representing the right brain, the right brain provides the energy and enthusiasm to move, the energy and enthusiasm to change directions, the energy and enthusiasm to even spring into action at all. And so I read that and I was like, that's it. And then I also, as I'm reading around, I saw a John Maxwell quote that pulls it all together. And John Maxwell says, we can't move people into action until we first move them with emotion. So if you think about the rider and the elephant, and I say this in all of my workshops, I say it when I'm doing my keynotes, and I say it when I'm talking to anybody who will listen or has an interest in any of this stuff, is think about it for you and me. If the rider and the elephant ever disagree, if the left brain and the right brain ever disagree on which direction to go or whether or not to spring into action, who's going to win? The rider or the elephant? It's going to be the elephant every time for a couple reasons. One, it's got a 6-ton weight advantage. That's why I love this metaphor. It's why I love this whole visual that Jonathan Haidt gives us. The other reason is the right brain, as he puts it, the elephant representing the right brain, is responsible for providing the energy and the enthusiasm to move or do anything at all. So that's why it was like this link for me, lightning. I was like, okay, here we go. Make people feel welcome, comfortable, and important makes a lot of sense now that I know what Jonathan Haidt just taught us. Because for me, it was always about, we love our favorite leaders for the same reasons. We love our favorite hospitality brands and destinations, your favorite bar, your favorite restaurant. And it's because of 9 times out of 10, it's because of how they make us feel. And so that's what I'm on a mission to do, is what I believe can transform mere jobs into truly meaningful work, is that when you and I as leaders can create these environments and we can make people feel the things they need to feel so that they will spark and jump into action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder, Julienne, if you have any reflections given the connection of
Yeah,
references there.
I'm thinking a lot about that. And there's so many ingredients that go into creating that. The whole concept of customer service and being, in present. And and is that something you think when you were looking at your teams that you could train, or you had to find the essence of customer service in them before you could move them up the row? I am biased. I always think that an essence has to be in there. That you can find that out in numerous ways, but they have to be pre-programmed to be giving and being of service. And I'm wondering what your experience is like when people are championing that word or that phrase of customer service.
Yeah, I do agree that it's a heck of a lot easier as a leader, as a coach, as a mentor, when that
Hmm.
person on your team or the person that you are mentoring, when they do have a certain makeup, or when they or if they have certain set of skills or characteristics or a certain mindset, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to lead them, to motivate them, to
Hmm.
inspire them. On the other hand, I remember right before Lead with Hospitality was going to be published, my
Hmm.
publisher, this guy Matt Holt, whom I love, he had left Wiley and gone to Ben Bella Books, and they gave him his own imprint. Now I'm on the Matt Holt imprint, and at the time, my subtitle for this book was like a big paragraph. And he calls me and he's like, "What we're gonna do with this subtitle, man?" I'm like, "I don't know, dude. You tell me. You're the publisher." And he's like, "Well, what do you want people to know? Like, what do you want people to walk away from Lead with Hospitality? What do you want people to remember?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I just spent 20 years working in all these different lines of business, on all these different levels of leadership, from Walt Disney World to Disneyland to Wynn Las Vegas to Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, a couple places in between. And I just got some things here. I know what works and what doesn't work as it relates to leading and inspiring and motivating people." And he's like, "All right, well, what are those things?" And I was like, "Here's the thing. I think about all my favorite leaders, all my favorite coaches, all my favorite professors, all my favorite pastors." And I just go to him. We're on the phone. And I'm like, it's just like they were like really human, and they emotionally connected with me and our team And I would just see them serving selflessly. They would serve us before they asked me or our team to do anything. And he was like, all right, nice talking to you. And that became our subtitle. And so the long-winded way to answer your question is, even if those people might not be thinking about it a certain way,
Hmm.
I believe in the power of humanness.
Hmm.
There's a quote out there that I heard from Mark Sanborn, who's a great author speaker. He wrote the book, The Fred Factor, that I love and kind of changed my mindset back in 2003. Um, but I think he was quoting someone else. It's great leaders are not great because of their leadershipness. Great leaders are
Hmm.
great because of their humanness.
Mm.
And so that's where I believe the magic happens, is when, even if they don't show up in a certain way that we think they should, even if they might not be thinking about it the right way yet, it's our humanness and it's our ability to emotionally connect. And it's our ability to go ahead and serve them like MLK would teach us. You know,
Mm.
you don't have to be you don't have to be great to serve, but everybody can serve and then be great, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
Jerome, I'm going to be totally selfish here today and elbow you out of the way one more time. Be like a New York subway, because I want to comment on the detail that was in one of your examples. And it was early days in your career where you were given housekeeping and there was an opening. And we all go to beautiful lobbies and hotel experiences, or we go to a room and there's stuff there. There's towels, there's sheets. You do a really good job of description of like going into that warehouse and seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of SKUs and saying, all of you, execs down to the staff, had to create that experience, but you also first had to unpack all the boxes. So we always have, I think that's a great example of leadership. Before there's the big fancy stuff, that's all the details. So
Exactly
thank you,
right.
Jerome. Mm,
Exactly right.
mm,
Yeah, no, I love that too, and I'm wondering, that so that philosophy, that essence that you're talking about, and essentially to bring out that human in us, that's something that we see a lot in our work as well, and that we discuss on this podcast too, is the hesitation that some people have with that,
mhm,
the resistance of, because some people might think it's making myself too vulnerable to, attacks or whatever, or judgments, maybe not attacks, but judgments and things like that, opinions, that people are going to have of me if I put myself out there in such a way that's, because if we talk about human, that also means, things that don't look so great, our frailties. It's not just about our strengths, but it's everything, our weaknesses too. Nobody's perfect. And so I wonder, in your experience, Taylor, in today's world where, I mean, I think we all get here why that's valuable, why that's important. But I wonder, what you've seen, especially in the face of, companies really looking to either attract the right kind of talent or retain the right kind of talent. And then once that talent is there, how do we make them all gel? I wonder what your perspective is on that, in terms of, getting the right people through the door and then keeping those people, when you lead in this way by being human. How do you transfer that to others?
Yeah, that's the trillion-dollar question, kind of. But that's what we're all out here trying to, at least those of us that do what I do, we're trying to help people um, take these principles, get some stories, get some illustrations of, oh, there's how they did it, there's how they did
Mm.
it. And then what I like to do, I mean, I come from, like, my mom was my kindergarten teacher, both my grandmothers were teachers, both of my aunts were teachers. I like
yeah,
doing principle, illustration, and then application.
Mm.
Here's a kind of like, and I grew up going to church, so it was always like the three-part sermon, and here's some three applications for this week as you go into the week. Love you, mean it. Let's all stand and sing hymn number 328, and you're on your way on Sunday afternoon. Go to your grandmother's house, eat some chicken and green beans. But your question there, Jerome, is, I believe it's around values. I love the Roy Disney quote. He's like, it's easy to make decisions when you know what your values are. And if
Mm.
you and I, everybody listening here, everybody watching, if you think about the best places you've ever worked, or if you think about, let's just keep with the vacation, vibe. I just got off a Disney cruise, so I'm still in kind of like the moment
Huh.
with my light up palm tree in my living room.
I
Everybody
see that. It did
is
not go unnoticed.
think about like the places you love to go on vacation. Like there's a reason we just went on another Disney cruise and we were just on one in August 8 months ago. They know what their values are. So they select for it, they
Mm,
coach to it, they recognize it in the moment. They hold accountable with it. Not just Disney, but any of these other great brands and everybody listening, that brand or that organization you're thinking about right now that you're like, man, that's a really good season of life. Chances are the values were dialed in.
mm,
So it's about knowing what the values are for you and me, for people that are looking for a place to go work. It's a great idea to look at the company values and see if they align with your own personal values, because that means you're going to bring your authentic self and you're going to match. You're going to fit. You're going to feel then like you belong, which is going to help you stay inspired to keep bringing your best selves. And so once you get that dialed in, then it's up to each individual though. And so leaders, and this is the part that gets tough, is the higher up people get, and at least in my experience, what I've observed and experienced with executives and vice presidents and presidents and SVPs, and it's those people that when they have the courage to be vulnerable, when they have the courage, when they are, let's call it secure enough in their own skin to be human,
mm,
that I believe is the difference in this, jockeying for position, manipulation, and again, transforming jobs into truly meaningful work.
mm. I love that. And I mean, you are to take the church analogy, you're preaching to the choir as far as we're concerned, the two of us. But I think that's great for our listeners to hear that message as well. That yeah, pay attention to your values, pay attention to the values of those that you want to be working with, and why that is, and make those connections. So since we're on the subject of values, I know that you talk about this in Give Hospitality, right? Where it's focusing on. I'm going to read from my notes here. Forgive me for a moment, but on those 5 core values: compassion, encouragement, kindness, hospitality, and leadership. So then implementing those values practically, what does that look like in your experience?
Yeah, that's why I wrote the book I wrote just
Mm,
now. This one that's going to be out July 8th, 2025.
mm,
And I decided to do it as a leadership fable this time,
Hmm.
because of all the reasons we just talked about. I'm
mm,
going for the elephant on this one because this was a lot of like, okay, yeah, I did have some stories, some personal stories, some about me, some about other leaders, but it was very much, and it still is very much like, here's some practical applications for how to bring these things to life. This one, I made it like a story that maybe we all can relate to. And so it's a story about a girl named Summer Grace. She's an up and comer. She leaves, stop me if you've heard this one before, but an up and coming leader that leaves a very toxic job. She leaves a toxic job with a toxic leader and she goes to work at a place called Gaylord Resorts. Gaylord means summertime in Hawaiian. And the story is about her first 2 weeks on the job. Week one, all they have to do, her and there's 20 new hires that are joining and they're going through their orientation experience. And their first week, all they're supposed to do is just experience one of the resorts, experience the shopping, the dining, the recreation, go to the pool, eat in the restaurant, sit in the lobby bar. And the second week, each day of the week, they go to these learning experiences, which I kind of paint the picture of what I do and what my team does. And they talk about one of the Coela Resort's values each day. And so what I've done is I have a G word, an I word, a V word, and an E word that I believe will help all of us bring these things to life, bringing how to give compassion, how to give encouragement, give kindness, give hospitality, and give leadership, even when things get a little bit tedious, even when things get a little bit fast paced. And so, um, giving compassion is things like the golden rule. When you and I live by the golden rule, it's automatically inclusive of everyone. There's the G and the I. And then so validate other people and engage other people. There's your V and your E. Giving
mm,
encouragement, gifts. We all have them. You've got your natural gifts. I've got my natural gifts. So gifts can make a positive impact. There's your I word. So be vocal. There's your V word. And then educate other people. Every chance you get, use your gifts to share with other people to lift them up. Lift as you climb, as you know, many would say. Giving kindness, genuineness. When we're just genuine, when we're genuine and basically authentic, when we're genuine, it has a way of influencing anybody and anything around us in the room that we're in. There's your G and the I. And then when we're vulnerable, to your point, that's the V word that goes along with kindness. As Brene
Mm,
Brown made vulnerability famous and changed some mindsets and changed some heart sets. When you and I as leaders are vulnerable and we show that humanness, people on our teams look at us and go, man, he's just as human as I am. And now they
mm,
might open up to taking our advice, to taking our coaching. And that in itself, E word, changes the environment. Giving hospitality starts with generosity, generosity of heart, generosity of spirit. And that is an inspiration to ourselves to keep doing more. And what I learned when I researched the scientific, the research backed reasons to be generous, turns out it's like very contagious. When you and I see or overhear somebody else being generous, apparently the way the science works, it makes us want to do that as well. So generosity is an inspiration to other people to do more volunteering. There's your V word for that one. And then it makes some great experiences, which everybody in hospitality, that word is near and dear to our heart. It's all about the experience that we want to create. And I just believe if we want to create great experiences, then we got to go experience cool things so we know what it feels,
Hmm.
know what it looks like, so we can help other people experience those things. And finally, leadership, GIVE. The G word for leadership that I chose to go here in this story is gratefulness. It's
mm,
impossible to be negative when we're grateful. Apparently, that's a thing. Our brain, it doesn't work that way. So, as a leader, when we show up with gratefulness, it sparks intentionality in how we show up, what we say, what we don't say, how we act, how we react, and more so, how we respond positively instead of letting ourselves react negatively.
mm,
And then the V and the E that goes with leadership is when you show up grateful and you're intentional, you're able to have this vision of this is exactly what I know we need to do. This is where we're going. And now I'm more compelled to share that with everybody. And then I believe the most important leadership skill of all is, in fact, empathy. And it's
mm,
unfortunately the most often overlooked.
Hmm.
And when we lived through COVID, when we lived through the fallout of that, those of us that were in hospitality, I, for one, couldn't get a job. A lot of us got laid off, and it was very scary.
mm,
So, long-winded way, there's a G word, I word, V word, and an E word that I believe will help us all bring to life compassion, encouragement, kindness, hospitality, and leadership. And I did it as a story. I did it
mm,
as a story,
Hmm.
and hopefully we all can follow along and just be entertained. Maybe you don't have to read it all in one shot, although I tried it. I've always wanted to write a book that you could read in one flight, and it
mm,
worked. Las Vegas to San Francisco. I did that.
Okay.
I printed these out as my galley copies to hand out to people to get the word out. So you can do it if you want, but I recommend taking your time and thinking about what these words, these sentiments, and how this might look in your life.
mm,
I want to circle back to something you said a few minutes ago about experiencing, like, and you bring that up in both your books, that you can't expect somebody to wait on somebody or really give them a great experience if they haven't experienced what it's like to have that feeling. And I think that is so important, and you can do that in big and small ways. Like, I used to do that. I was a retail manager for a company, would feed my staff, not just bring them lunch, but feed them, have them sit down, because they were working very hard and handling a lot of things in the store. So you did that, and it was a small gesture of being humble. And I think what you're showing is something that's achievable by anybody in any type of business, whether they're the top in their area or they're in a staff situation, to play it forward and really have them experience what it is to have people waiting on them, being kind, making them feel welcomed every day, saying their name and saying hello when they pass in the hallway, small things. So I think you have a very good mission to follow up on.
mm,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Chip and Dan Heath wrote another book, and everything they write turns to gold. This one did too. I loved their book, The Power of Moments, why some
Mhm.
moments are more extraordinary than others. And they did all the research like they always do, and it spells the word epic. Ready? EPIC. I've always loved this. Chip and Dan, if you ever see this or listen to it, thank you for all your inspiration. But the some moments, and this goes for you and I as leaders, you and I as brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and fathers and mothers, and coworkers, anybody that cares about other people.
Mm.
Apparently, when we as human beings experience these four things, an elevated sense of joy, um, a sense of pride, the good pride that reminds that you're proud to be a part of something, a moment of insight, something that you learn, something that somebody shows you that sticks with you for a while. And then the C is connection. So if we can create these moments, create these experiences, we call them moments that matter, that will
Hmm.
do those four things at once. Apparently, according to Chip and Dan and all the research, those are the moments that stick with people. And now we
Mm.
know what we know about Jonathan Haidt stuff, the elephant and the rider, and the guy that said, in order to, the essence of hospitality, making people feel welcome, comfortable, and important. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, this is all making sense now. Now I know why I just spent what I spent to go on another Disney cruise with my family, my niece, my nephew, my sister, my mom, my dad, my aunt, and my wife after we just did it 8 months ago. It's
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
logic that drives you to make those decisions. It's the feelings every time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I love this, and I really appreciate you referencing these other authors and citing this research. That's all gold for us and our listeners. And listeners, be ready because our episode notes are going to be very rich this time. We'll have lots and lots of references for you, as we often do. But this is really great. So, I wish we had all the time in the world here, and we could just keep talking and talking because we are so kind of connected and aligned. But unfortunately, we do have to kind of start landing this plane. And I know you shared a couple of things with us to share with our listeners, which I alluded to in the introduction. But I wonder if there's something that you would want to either say about those things, or what you would like to leave our listeners with.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we created a whole company here. We created a whole organization that we will create and design what we call live learning experiences to help leaders and teams and organizations bring these principles to life. And what we do is we go in and we just facilitate conversations. I'm an old school basketball guy from Kentucky. I grew up a point guard, so I tell people I'm like a point guard in these sessions, and so is my team. And we're not there to just talk at people. What we do is we ask the right questions and we facilitate conversations in and among these leadership teams, or these teams of frontline folks. So on our website at leadwithhospitality.com, you're going to find all these things. You're going to see all these different types of experiences that we've created that we're out here doing, for people like United Airlines, Montage Resorts, Choice Hotels, Highgate Hotels. And several more. The Statler Hotel at Cornell University. So we would love the opportunity to connect with you and to come and work with you and your teams if you have a need for leadership development, frontline development. We also have a program that we're doing right now called Edutainment, the art and science of inspiring facilitation, which is everything I ever picked up from Disney and out here in Las Vegas. And it's just to create an environment for learning in a fun and memorable way. So if you have a learning development team, if you have a training department and you have your own facilitators, we can come and help you do it the way that we've learned that Disney does it. Wynn Las Vegas, Cosmopolitan. I've taken all these things that I've learned over the years. So that's one thing. We'd love to connect with you. There's a couple links here for you can download the action plan that goes along with Give Hospitality, which will be out July 8th, 2025. There's also an action plan that goes with Lead with Hospitality that's been out since April of 2021. And then my information, Taylor at leadwithhospitality.com. Send me an email anytime. I love connecting with people, having these conversations about the things that matter. There's one final thing. The reason I did the Hawaiian theme to this book is I love Hawaii. I love Hawaiian people. I love the island of Maui. And so I,
Mm.
like many, were devastated when the wildfires happened in August of 2023. So I chose to do this with a generosity sentiment with the Hawaiian theme at a fictional resort called Gaylord Resorts on purpose, with a purpose, for a person. In the back of this book, I'm hoping that we can go to the links here of the Maui relief, or hurricane relief on the eastern seaboard. I also started a travel agency. I'm a part of a franchise by Dream Vacations. So we now have Lead with Hospitality Travel Group by Dream Vacations. So we can help you and your family go to Hawaii and
Mm.
or take cruises around the Hawaiian Islands or wherever your dream vacation is, because that's another thing that we believe in, is the more people we can send, the incremental guests, customers, and clients we can send to these hospitality destinations and to these brands that we love is going to help the people that work at those places that bring their magic to life.
Yeah, well, you are definitely walking the talk of generosity. That's for sure. Lots of generous gifts from you, and really appreciate you talking about Maui as well. And we'll make sure to say the names of those organizations and link to them if people want to help out there, because that's certainly, even if it's happened a little while ago, we know people need help right now. So thank you for that. Yes, Jules, I know you're chomping at the bit.
Yes. All right. I get to be selfish and curious on these podcasts. So you mentioned your aunties, you mentioned your mom were teachers, all in education. What were you like as a kid? Because I always like the backstories. Is there one example of you really getting a hospitality bug, or, examples of what you did even as a child that, shaped you?
Yeah, we grew up going to Walt Disney World on vacation. First time we went, I was 5 years old, and we'd go every single year. And then I knew when I was 16 years old, I wanted to work at Walt Disney World. So I called casting and I asked about how do I get into the Walt Disney World college program to do the internships. And they said, well, first you got to be in college. So I'm like, all right. So then I knew. And I was a basketball player growing up, point guard, loved the game of basketball, knew I wanted to go try to play basketball at the collegiate level. And so I found Florida Southern College on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose. It's in Lakeland, Florida, 40 miles west of Walt Disney World. I walked on the
Mhm.
basketball team there, and every single summer in college, I worked at Walt Disney World and learned a bunch of this stuff.
Mm, yeah,
Fantastic. Thank you for
amazing.
that backstory.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and I hope that our listeners are going to run to get these books. And I know Give Hospitality is coming out in July of this year. All of those details are going to be in the episode notes and on our website at narrative.com, narrativ.com. We'll be posting this on social media. So wherever you find your information, I'm sure you're going to come across this one because we really love this. And thanks, Taylor, for being on the show. Really appreciate your being, you epitomize, you
Yeah,
manifest
work
this
work on
idea
the
of,
energy, Taylor. You need to like up it a bit.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. But no, but I mean, you really do live by what you're talking about. I can tell that you embody it,
Mhm.
and this idea of being human. We got the whole
Mhm.
you today, and really appreciate that. So thank you so much for showing up in that way. And yeah, thank you, Julienne, for being my wonderful co-host
Always,
as
always fun.
always. And I want to thank you, listeners, for being here. And again, if you've been inspired by this session, there's a number of links that you'll find related to Taylor's work. If you want to find out more about the kind of story that you might be able to tell, to find, to craft, and tell using our particular method, again, go to narrative.com, narrativ.com. If you've got any questions, we're always ready to listen. There is one special thing that I need to plug right now. We have a new online course that we've done in partnership with the New Mexico State University's Global Campus that just came out. And so that's going to be on demand, self-paced. You'll find a link with a 25% discount for all our listeners. And again, if you have any questions about that, we're always ready to listen to you. So as always, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.